It's the moment you've all been waiting for. The biggest designer throwdown in all of board gaming history. Rosenberg versus Pfister versus Phillips versus Knizia in this, the Room and Board official designer deathmatch. Was that enough winding up for you? I don't know. Are you pumped? I don't know. I don't know who you are. You're watching this video. I wasn't sure if you would. Welcome to the Room and Board Deathmatch, and this month we are pitting 4 of the top designers voted on by my patrons to compete in a battle to the death. Yes, if you haven't heard from these designers, well, you were right. I have kept them in an underground bunker, and they have been battling it out amongst themselves. I've made clones of them, I guess. I think I made clones of them. They battled it out amongst themselves and then emerged victorious and battled it out to only have one designer escape. There's only one designer that is going to reign supreme out of these 4 titans in this classic deathmatch format. We did publishers and now we did designers. As you can see, the game scrolling by my head, we are doing a full month, or we did a full month, of designer death matches. These are the death matches that, you know, Vogue talks about, those designer death matches. And this was a fun one. If you haven't seen any of these Room and Board death matches before, well, basically it's like a March Madness bracket where every day over on the Discord, we are voting on 2 games, one of 2 games, and that game will move forward. And in the end, we will crown our champion. This is the results for the June death match. And this was an exciting one. Uwe Rosenberg holds some of my favorite games out there. Alexander Pfister of Great Western Trail fame holds quite a few in the top 100. Phillips has the entire West Kingdom trilogy and the North Sea trilogy, and now the South Tigris trilogy up and coming, along with a couple other games. And then Dr. Rainer Knizia has, of course, made, about 700 games, and these are the cream of the crop. How we chose these games is, well, you didn't, I did. I picked the best rated ones. And this deathmatch is a little bit unique because I kind of curated the list. That's why you will see some fun matchups, and we are going to once and for all determine what is the best game from each of these designers' catalogs and which of them is going to come out on top. So strap yourself into the chair because it might blow your socks off what's about to happen. Drop right now in the comments down below which designer you think is going to win and which game you think is going to make it all the way to the finals. I'm always interested in seeing what people predict. And if you predict it now, well, then you can have real bragging rights when you come up with the answer, the correct answer. Hopefully, that was enough time for you to see all of the games floating by my head. And now we are back, and we are going to get right into it. The first round takes always a little bit longer because I like to explain the games in a little bit more detail. And if you're interested, well, then you can go check them out. Except, unfortunately, you may not be able to because the punishment for losing one of these death matches is that all the losers get burned for all eternity. The stakes are high here, and we are going to find out once and for all who's going to take home the prize for June 2023. However, there's one special thing about this death match before we begin that has never happened before, and that is the mystery of the abacus. Abacus, abacus, abacus. What is the mystery of the abacus? Well, that will be revealed. All will be revealed over the course of this video. So let's get into it. Starting off with Agricola versus Caverna. Now you can see that I set up these matchups purposefully with Agricola and Caverna. Agricola and Caverna often being compared to each other because they share a lot of the same core concepts. Agricola came out in 2007, where you are going to have this worker placement puzzle where you're building your own farmland. At the end of the game, you might have expanded. I don't know who did this. This is the most ludicrous thing I've ever seen. If you've played Agricola, you know how hard it is to build additional rooms. That seems like there's some shenanigans going on, and it's a horrible score. That's much more realistic. Also a more realistic setup. The goal of the game is to diversify your farm, and if anyone will show me a picture of the damn board, that's close enough. All of these cards, as you see out here, are going to be spaces that you can put your workers out on. and you can gather resources, and then you can use those resources to diversify in your farm. Now, Caverna took the same concepts, but they also applied it to both farmland and caves. So not only are you developing your farms, but you're also developing the rooms in your cave, and that makes a little bit more of a distinct difference. In Agricola, you get to draft a hand of cards. These different cards, which will give you different abilities throughout the game and different things that you can build. And in Caverna, most of those sorts of things are represented in buildings and in rooms that you can furnish your cave with. And so it gives you a little bit more of a wide swath of things, whereas in Agricola, you have this hand of cards that only you have, and gives you a little bit more of a personal puzzle as you go through the game. There's also a adventuring mechanic in Caverna where your dwarves can grow up to be bigger and stronger dwarves, and the more that they do, the more that they, well, do. So the two are fairly comparable, Caverna and Agricola. It's based upon a very similar system of putting your workers out, getting stuff. If you leave a spot untouched, the resources will pile up from turn to turn, and so part of the strategy is determining, okay, can I get away with leaving those resources and maybe getting them next time and saving that worker and saving that action efficiency, which I think is really interesting. And so naturally, this was a pretty close vote between the two. In fact, it was tied 13-13 with 4 dice of chaos to be rolled. Now, what happens oftentimes in these death matches is if somebody loves both so much that they can't decide between the two, then they'll throw down a die of chaos and let fate choose, and I'll roll a dice, and 1 to 3 it goes to one, and 4 to 6 it goes to the other one. And so it is Agricola that pulls ahead with a swath of votes from the die of chaos, and I'm thrilled that happened. I think I like Agricola better, personally. I find Agricola, I really love the card play of Agricola, and that really helps vary up the plays consistently for me. With Caverna, I like the addition and the additional complexity that comes with it, but Agricola's already got enough meat to it anyway. And so for my money, I would opt for Agricola generally because I like how the cards vary up every play and make it feel a little bit more unique and give you different things to pursue. And it's very surprising. Absolutely, you must play with the cards. The family version or the intro game will tell you not to play with the cards, and it's much less interesting to play without those special abilities that you get to do. So Agricola does move on in a solid 16-14 vote, and Caverna is buried under its own weight and caves and dwarves. Moving along, we have Bohnanza versus Glass Road. Bohnanza is one of Uwe Rosenberg's first games out there. You have a bunch of bean cards, and the trick of this game, or the gimmick of this game, so to speak, is that you cannot rearrange your cards. When they go into your hand, that's where they stay. The only time you can rearrange them is if you trade your beans. And so you're trying to get sets and plant sets of beans, like the wax beans or the soybeans. And you can see here that each bean that you would make has a different value depending upon the sets, right? The number of beans that you sell at a time are worth more money because, you know, more beans, more money, as the expression goes. And so it's about strategically playing the beans from your hand and then harvesting the beans to try to economize the most money, basically. That's against Glass Road, which I haven't played, but I think it looks good. My friends have it, and I've been meaning to play it with them. What's really exciting to me about Glass Road is that it says it plays in 20 to 80 minutes. The chance for it to play very quickly makes a lot of sense as you try to make glass in the Bavarian forest. And if you've ever played Broom Service, which we will see later on in the list, it has a very similar mechanic of everybody has a hand of specialists. And if you play a specialist that nobody plays and nobody has, then you get extra stuff from it. So you're wanting to suss out your opponents, what they're going to play, and play the things that they don't have, because you want to use both of their abilities to process glass and just do more things. You always want to do stuff, but it is going to be the core of reading your opponents and playing those cards correctly that will determine your success or not. And while Bohnanza is interesting, I think it being sort of one of Uwe's more earlier experiences and not having the, the board and the complexity and the moving parts that Glass Road might have, made it falter a little in the votes, and it is Glass Road that moves forward in a solid 15-8 vote. 2 down, moving on to Uwe's final matchup in the bracket. Because this took place in June, there have to be some that have any buys, and so I gave the more game slots and the more matchup slots to designers that people requested more. So Uwe was one of the least requested, but still made it into the top 4, and so that's why we have this bracket. But I also wanted to honor these games, and there's so many good designers and so many great games from these designers that I had to throw in 3 here. So it's Le Havre versus Patchwork versus Fields of Arle. All 3 of these games are super well liked. We're looking at 82, 111, and 62 on Board Game Geek's top listing and ranking. And because of that, I had to include them. Le Havre might be my own personal favorite Uwe Rosenberg of all time. It is so good because there's so many decisions that you have to make. If you don't like long games, well, then you may want to play the short version of this game. There's always a short version of Uwe's games, I believe, that he includes in a lot of them. And in Le Havre, the game is very simple. There's going to be a communal boat that you're moving one space at a time. Oh, that's a very big picture. Well, we'll go down the river together on one space. And every time you drop it on these spaces, these circles right here, they're also variable. So every game is completely different. Those resources, kind of like Agricola, get added to the common pool. You'll see there's 2 wood down here. Okay, I'm going to zoom out so you can see a little bit more of it. You see there's 2 wood down here, there's 1 meat, and so when the boat goes onto this space, another wood and another meat would get added to that pool. And then on your turn, you can either take all the resources from one pool, doesn't matter what pool it is, that ends your turn, or you can build a building. You can use the resources to build a building and add it to your shop. And you do that really by using the real second action, which is placing your worker on a building. A lot of buildings help you build buildings, but other buildings have other effects. And so as the game goes on, there's going to be more and more spaces that open up in people's personal buildings. And the key is, if somebody goes to your building, you have a very popular spot, they have to pay you for using it. And so everyone's trying to gobble up these different buildings and making sure, of course, to feed their people, since it's Uwe Rosenberg and you always have to feed your people. But it's just such a friggin' great flow of the game. That's funny. As you go through here, you can see these buildings up top here. This is the building supply, and only these 3 buildings are available for purchase or for building. And then you can see down here, this is where mostly the town's buildings would be, or the town's buildings actually in this setup are over here. These are all the buildings that the town has purchased that you can use, and you have to pay the town. It's really good. Patchwork, maybe you've heard of it. This is in the World Series of Board Gaming for 2023, and it is a 2-player head-to-head button game, a polyomino game about building the best quilt, making a beautiful quilt that is absolutely complete. On your turn, you're going to get to take one of 3 tiles. You'll get to purchase, as we zoom in, one of 3 tiles ahead of the player marker. And you can see here, this tile would cost you 3 buttons and 6 time, because everything that you do costs you time, and you move spaces on this board. You can see the grain of wood, those indicate spaces. And then every time you cross a button, you get the number of buttons equal to the number of buttons on your current quilt. So this one costs you 3 buttons, but will give you 2 buttons every time you go over it. It's a really solid 2-player game. You want to fill up your quilt because any holes in your quilt are worth negative points at the end. You want to get the most buttons. I'm horrible at this game, but I recognize that people enjoy it. And then finally, we have Fields of Arle, which is just a 1 to 2-player game. I haven't played this yet, but my friends also have it. We're going to have an Uwe Rosenberg day, so I can play all the Uwe Rosenbergs that I haven't played, and I'm very excited about it. But in this, it's a 2-player game that you can also play solo, and you're going to do the things that you generally do in Uwe Rosenberg games, which is get farming, get goods, sell those goods, survive, feed your people, etc. With a bunch of different options to choose from, a bunch of different places to go to. But this one is unique in specifically that it is 2 players only, at a max of 2 players, and that you can also play it solo. I know Patchwork also has 2 players, but hey, that's why I put these ones together. And this one was actually pretty close. When I'm looking at the votes now, it is actually Patchwork that is winning, but it is not Patchwork that moved forward. People didn't get their votes in time. It came down to a tiebreaker, and it was 10-10-9 10 for Patchwork, 9 for Le Havre, Foolish People, and 10 for Fields of Arle. In the case of a tie, the win goes to the one that gets the most extra votes. So everybody has one extra vote that they can use throughout the tournament. If your game moves on, then your vote is considered used. If it doesn't, well, then you can use it again some other time. And I like having this in there because it encourages people to double down on the things that they really love without fear of needing to gamify the system or saying, listen, I know this game isn't going to win, so I'm not going to use my vote and like strategically do that. No, I want this to be all about discussion. That's what it's meant to be. And so I like having that as a rule, but it is the extra vote that does push the tiebreaker forward because there was so much passion. There was more passion behind these voters than the other voters, and it is Fields of Arle that slurps Patchwork and moves forward with its dearth of options into the next round. Goodbye, Le Havre. Goodbye, Patchwork. One of you, I feel sad about losing. So with that, it's over to the Pfister side of the bracket, and we're starting out with Great Western Trail, the 2nd edition, versus Boonlake. Now, Great Western Trail, I probably don't need to explain it too much to you, but if you've never played it, you can see you're going to be going all around the lone, winding, lonesome road up all the way to Kansas City to show off your cows. That's what you want to do, and on your turn, you can move a number of spaces, and if you stop at a communal building or a building that you own, you get to take that special action. If you stop at somebody else's building, well, you can just take a basic action, and you never want to do that because those aren't great. At the same time, you're trying to build your deck filled with cows so that you can show off more impressive cows when you get to the end of the road, which will then give you more money, which you can then use to buy more buildings or push your railroad ahead full steam down the path to get more special station bonuses. There's a whole mix of different things, but it's going to revolve around purchasing these 3 different builders, these 3 different characters, and leveling up your tracks. The 2nd edition is a really nice version with a god-awful insert and should burn just for that. It's against Boonlake, which I really want to try because it has the follow mechanic, which is something that I love. That's something that's in Earth. It's something that's in Race for the Galaxy, Puerto Rico. And this is another one where you're building and raising cattle and exploring the fictional western U.S. region of Boonlake. The action you take also shows how far you're going to travel down the river, which will give you different stuff. I haven't played Boonlake, like I said. I really am interested in doing so. Unfortunately, I'm never going to get the chance because it is hard to stand up against the behemoth that is Great Western Trail, and it is Great Western Trail that moves forward in an 18-11 vote. Moving along to Broom Service versus Mombasa, which I really should have talked about the re-implementation of Sky Mines, because that's the one that doesn't have all that colonialism and colonizing and just not a great theme. Another reason why Great Western Trail number 2 is good, because, you know, you don't refer to the people as Indians when they're natives. Well, let's talk about Broom Service first. Broom Service, again, deals with what Glass Road deals with in terms of you wanting to choose the action that nobody picks. You're going to have this map out here, and you're going to be going around to different regions and trying to fulfill and deliver potions. And how you're going to get the ingredients is moving your witches to a specific location and then saying, yes, I'm going to take these ingredients. But on your turn, you can play a weak, timid action, which guarantees you the smaller version of a card. Or you can play the brave action. If you don't think somebody else took that card who is ahead of you in the turn order, you can be a brave weather fairy and do more things. And so it's all about sussing out your opponents and figuring out how to navigate this board effectively and pushing your luck as to who's going for the same thing or not. Every person gets to take 4 cards a turn, and there's something like 6 rounds. It's solid. Just good running around, good pick up and deliver, fulfilling and dropping potions off to the various houses that want them and getting points for those. You can see this is covered by a potion. That means nobody else can drop a potion off there anymore. So it's fighting and racing to get those best spots. Mombasa is still super highly rated, though, at number 100 on Board Game Geek. I hear people still reference it as Mombasa. I wasn't really aware that Sky Mines is just the re-theming of this exact game and the re-implementation of it. And it has a better rating on Board Game Geek right now, but that's not the one that we're talking about. We're talking about Mombasa. where again, you have that sort of card-driven game. You start with an identical hand, and you get better and better cards over the course of the game. Also dealing with simultaneous play, and also dealing with sort of a flow of play. You're going to put a card face down, and then you're all going to reveal it, and then that card can't be used. And so you can be clocking around the table, okay, these people can't do that on this turn, these people can't do that. I can now have the opportunity to swoop in and move my people unobstructed, that kind of thing. Trying to colonize Africa the best. And this one was a close one. Mombasa does have a solid gameplay foundation, but so does Broom Service. They're both pretty good. There were some chaos dice here, but it didn't matter. Before the dice of chaos, Broom Service was leading 14-12, and it is Broom Service that moves forward in a 16-15 vote. Moving along to Maracaibo versus Blackout Hong Kong. Maracaibo is one that is often sort of compared to Great Western Trail. This is Pfister's second most known and most popular game. And the similarities to Great Western Trail are because you're going to be going around this island system and stopping off at different locations and doing abilities. Very similar to the buildings in Great Western Trail. And it's about how fast you navigate through the circle or how slowly, and how efficient are you with those actions, and how much do you push the tempo of the game. Blackout Hong Kong is one that I've been really interested in, and mainly because I've seen it at a lot of bring and buys for like 20 bucks Canadian. And I think for an Alexander Pfister game, it was on sale at Board Game Bliss for around that price for a while. And so I think that's why people were selling it. I'm like, yeah, it feels pretty good. I hear the board in Blackout Hong Kong in one of the editions really sucked and you couldn't see anything. I also hear it's not great for being colorblind. And we had a lot of people jumping on for the theme of Blackout Hong Kong, which is that Hong Kong has been struck by a large-scale unexpected blackout. As a government struggles to maintain control, you decide to take matters into your own hands and try to bring back some kind of societal order. Whoever best manages the situation and restores the semblance of order will surely claim a position of power in post-Blackout Hong Kong. And look, you have somebody here trying to create theme out of nothing with a candle, like another game which shall not be named. And so people were swayed by that. However, we had some great conversation in the Discord about people who actually have played Blackout Hong Kong and said, listen, Maracaibo's better. Blackout Hong Kong's theme doesn't really translate. It doesn't feel like the people who themed it even played the game before they themed it, which was a pretty powerful voting incentive. And it helps Maracaibo move ahead in a 19-8 vote. Moving along, we have Port Royal versus Oh My Goods. And Port Royal is one that seems actually pretty interesting to me. I'd never heard of either of these, to be honest, before I did this deathmatch, but they were highly rated at Pfisters, and so I thought, okay, let's include them. Port Royal, why it intrigues me is because it reminds me a little bit of Incan Gold, because you're constantly going to be drawing these cards, and if you draw a ship and you have enough firepower to fight it, you can take down the ship, you can get money, and you keep on drawing cards, drawing more and more ships to try to get more and more loot, pushing your luck until you want to stop. Because the key is, if you happen to draw the same ship, two of the same ship, you bust and you don't get to take home any treasure. And so you're trying to get 12 points before somebody else does in this quick push your luck card game. That seems kind of fun. Oh My Goods has the worst BGG description out of all of these, where it says players are European artisans during the Middle Ages who produced tools, barrels, glass windows, and many other goods. Only if you make clever use of your production chains will you have the most victory points at the end of the game. Thanks for literally nothing, Board Game Geek. Thanks for giving us generic production Euro the card game. And having just paused and watched and learned how to play this game, let me tell you that the wrong game won. In Oh My Goods, you're going to have a bunch of cards, all these different cards, and there's going to be a number of phases. Basically, these cards are multi-use. You can build them as buildings, you can use them as resources, you can use them as different resources. The person who has the most points at the end of the game wins. You can see if I zoom in a little, each thing has its resource of what it kind of can be used for, the amount of coins that it costs, the amount of victory points that it will produce, and then also what it can do. If you spend these rocks and clay, you can make this little bit of iron, and that's how much it sells for, right? So you're trying to capitalize on these cards that are coming up. There's going to be an open market that comes up. All in all, a quick little card game that seems fine, but it seems like no Port Royal or flopped Poyatia, as we say in Greece. I'm pretty sure I got that pronunciation right. And so even though I tried to rig the votes, I don't think everybody who voted for Oh My Goods actually voted for it. I think they voted more for the description, to be fair. And honestly, I can't blame you for it. It is Port Royal that loses in a 11 to 12 vote, and it's Oh My Goods that moves on with its multi-use cards into the next round. And speaking of the next round, not the next round that Oh My Goods is going to be in, but the next round over on the other side of the bracket, we've now moved into the Phillips round, where we have Architects of the West Kingdom versus Viscounts of the West Kingdom. You can see they're different games because they look really different. Actually, no, I love the art style. I love the art style on all of these games, and they are a little bit unique in terms of how they play. I've played Architects, and that is your standard worker placement game with a little bit of a twist in that every time you put your worker down, you have like 20 workers. If you put your down on a spot where your worker is there already, you then get more resources. So I first put my worker down, I get 1 stone. Second time I put my worker there, and I have now 2 workers. I get 2 stone. And then I put another one there, I have 3 workers. I get 3 stone. You see where I'm going with this. You can also manipulate over here on the side. You can manipulate your stature. You can be a good boy or a naughty, wicked bad boy who goes to the black market. You can see every time you go to the black market, you lose reputation. And that's okay, because you're going to figure out ways to get reputation anyway by the end of the game. If you gain reputation to a certain point, then you can no longer attend the black market and deal in those illicit deeds. Let's get a picture of the board with stuff on it instead. You're going to be collecting these different artisans as well to help you out, which will give you little abilities, building parts of the cathedral, and building additional buildings, which will give you points. And then the crux of the thing is that if you see a large bunch of rabble-rousers, well, you can go and send them all to jail and get money for sending them to jail. And so that's the sort of ebb and flow of this game, is you're going to be stopping your opponent's workers, sending them to jail, not letting them cascade up, while also pursuing your own goals. Oh yeah, also the best thing about all of these is in every single one of the games, the aim of Viscounts of the West Kingdom is to be the player with the most victory points, VPs, at the game ends. And you see, the aim of Architects of the West Kingdom is to be the player with the most victory points, VPs, at the game's ends. See, they're completely different. And so how Viscounts is a little bit different is that there's a combo. Here are your buzzwords. There's your rondel worker placement, and then you've got a little bit of a deck building aspect as you're adding more and more people from the common tableau into your deck and having them pop out. There's going to be this ebb and flow of moving workers in and out. And where Viscounts actually picked up a lot of steam is I have a lot of solo players in the Discord, and some of them were advocating that Viscounts was a good, really good solo experience, whereas the solo version of Architects isn't that great. I personally quite enjoy Architects, but the people who I've played it with haven't been overwhelmed by it. I like that ebb and flow of it, but it's one that I feel like I want to gravitate towards more, and I just don't, because I know it hasn't had that wow factor that I've been hoping it would have against other people. I've only played it at smaller player counts, and I hear that you can play it at larger, more exciting player counts, but that's just one thing to say about Architects. The crux of Viscounts is going to be playing these townsfolk, though, to move your little Viscount around the ring, either on the outside or on the inside, depending upon which actions you want to take. You can only do those on the inside or the outside. And I think, again, because of the popularity of the solo mode, Viscounts picked up a lot of votes. It was very close. Before the Die of Chaos, it was 14 to 13. And then afterwards, well, it was a complete blowout. It was 18 to 14 for the leading player, and it is Viscounts that does move forward in that vote. Surprisingly, I've only heard Architects talked about very highly, and yet they're out of the competition. It's Viscounts that's moving on. Moving along, we have Wayfarers of the South Tigris versus Explorers of the North Sea. You can see in Wayfarers, the aim of Wayfarers is to be the player with the most victory points at game's end. And in Explorers of the North Sea, well, it's because it came out a little bit earlier before their marketing descriptor had gotten a hold of it. It's the only one that doesn't matter. You don't want to have the most victory points. I mean, you do, but you're going to be collecting victory points by both raiding settlements and moving livestock. You're going to have all of these islands that you're going to be sailing out towards, and you want to pillage and you want to deliver livestock. Sometimes the explorers giveth, and sometimes the explorers taketh away. Wayfarers is dice worker placement, basically. You're going to be, let's see if I can zoom in a little bit here. You're going to be moving all across going to be moving your caravan all across the way, seeing and penciling and journaling about the wonders of the South Tigris. And once one player has reached the far end of the journal track, the game is over. And so you also have to juggle your caravan and how effective it is to move in your own little card-driven game to move things along. Wayfarers is the first one of the South Tigris series. There's also Scholars of the South Tigris that came out this year, and there's going to be another of the South Tigris. Tigers of the South Tigris, I'm pretty sure. That's going to be coming out next year. Fine, it's Inventors. It's Inventors of the South Tigris that's coming out next year. But it doesn't matter because people care more about Vikings and exploring the North Sea than they do about caravanning across the South Tigris in Baghdad. And it is Explorers of the North Sea that moves on in a 13-12 vote. This isn't even the second version. This is the first version. And still it moves ahead. And finally, in our last visit to Shem Phillips, we have Noctiluca versus Raiders of Scythia, or Scythia, versus Raiders of the North Sea. And so I wanted to throw in a game that isn't of a compass point style game, and Noctiluca was Shem Phillips' most highly rated game outside of that. It's an abstract game where you're diving for dice. You're getting a whole bunch of different colorful dice and you're trying to sell them to healers. You can see the types of dice that you need to collect and you need to bottle, and you can see some pawns and placement where you're going delving for dice and you're drafting these dice and trying to compete against your friends. I don't know, this just pleases me a lot more, even though it's essentially doing the same job of the same game. However, I would like you to note that the aim of Raiders of Scythia is to be the player with the most victory points at the game's end, and that's not what it is in Raiders of the North Sea, so I guess there's a little bit of a difference there. Anyway, the basic balance of this game is you're going to have to balance working and getting enough resources and raiding and going out on raiding parties and getting glory for raiding the most lands. That's it. And you do this by having a nice flow of placing a worker down in a spot and then pulling a worker up from another spot, thereby opening it up for other people. And so the flow is not moving the workers around because you have multiple workers. Kind of gives it a little tweak that seems different, but really isn't that different at all. Anyway, Raiders of the North Sea is sitting at 99 on Board Game Geek, and Raiders of Scythia is sitting at 381, but that doesn't matter because you know what? This is the better version. Fast turns, easy solo mode, and it is Raiders of Scythia that comes out on top in a 13-9 to 6 vote. Sorry, Noctiluca. I think you look kind of cool, but you're not moving on in this competition. And finally, we are here at the Reiner Knizia quarter of the bracket. I'm going to try to ramp and speed these things up. I know they get longer and longer as the game goes on, but again, I like to give a breakdown. Luckily, I am the most familiar with Reiner Knizia, so I can bang these out real quick. First off, we have Tigris and Euphrates versus Lost Cities. This is what my box of Lost Cities looks like. Maybe it looks like that for you. Tigris and Euphrates is an awesome, elegant game of area control. I don't have this version. I have the one with the plastic stuff. Not that one either. Or this. You can see it's had many iterations over the course of the years, but the core of the game has always remained the same. You're going to be hiding tiles behind your screens and placing them in to form different empires. You can see one of each color can exist in an empire, and every time you place a tile of a certain color in that empire, you get a point of that color. So if you place a blue tile down, the blue leader will get a point. If you place a green tile down, the green leader will get a point. But the key of this game is that not only are you trying to connect all of these different spots on the board to get wild points, because also your score is not the most points that you have, but the most points that you have in your worst color. So if you have 100 points in green, blue, and red, and you have 2 points in black, your score is 2, and you failed this game abysmally. It's really good. It's what's pioneered Knizia scoring. It's also been re-implemented upon in Yellow and Yangtze, and also now the new implementation that was on GameFound recently called Huang. Such an awesome, simple area control game. Just great. It's against Lost Cities, which also now has a roll and write. Lost Cities is very simple as well. Ugh, no, don't give me those. A homemade version, that's not what I want. I want the real deal. In Lost Cities, you are going to be facing off against an opponent. It's a two-player card game where you have 8 cards in your hand, and on your turn you can either play a card or discard a card into a communal discard pile. And when you do, you then get to draw back up to 8 cards, either from a face-down deck or from the communal discard pile. So the crux of the game is, okay, does my opponent have those things? Am I holding on to the cards that my opponent needs for long enough that they'll just give up and commit to a quest? Because if you commit to one of the 5 colors of the expedition, you have to get a total of 20 points to even just break even. And so committing to it is a dangerous thing, because you might lose points by doing so if your opponent has been holding all the red cards and you think, okay, I think I can commit at like a 5 or a 6 red because I can probably scoop up some stuff, and your opponent's been holding on to 7, 8, 9 red, well, then you're screwed. And so it's about balancing out, when do you really go hard on a color or when do you give up those valuable colors to someone else. I think Lost Cities is just okay, personally. I love Tigris and Euphrates so much more. Lost Cities, it feels a bit too mathy to me. It also feels like I always just have a 50-50 chance of getting the card that I want. And so I'm not really worried about the cards that my opponent is holding on to. I'm just worried about what I'm going to draw. So that back and forth doesn't really give me that much pleasure. And looking back now, I see there's more votes that have been added. But when the vote was called, it was 14-6 for Tigris. However, Tigris also scooped up the abacus of mystery. I forgot what I've called it. We had one abacus vote. Now, the abacus was a thing that I tried to introduce to the deathmatch rules a while ago because I was getting tired of the Die of Chaos. I wanted people to just pick something. Where I said, oh, if you want to have a game within a game, it was in the Euro Deathmatch. I said, oh, there'll be an abacus. Somebody threw it on as a little emoji, and I said, yeah, I can create rules for that, but they're going to be secret, and it'll be only if you can figure it out that maybe you can use the abacus to your advantage and to get one of these 2 things in the lead. And so the abacus did fall for Tigris and Euphrates and not Lost Cities. All of the abacus votes are going to go to one thing. And so if you want to figure out what the abacus is as you watch along, well, I'll tell you where they fell, and then maybe you can figure it out as we go, and I'll tell you at the end what it was all about as well. And then every month, I'm going to change the abacus rules as well. This month's is very good, and nobody is going to get it. And if nobody gets it, well, maybe I'll keep it. Maybe I'll keep it. Anyway, Tigris and Euphrates wins. Way to go, Tigris and Euphrates. You move on in a 16-6 vote. Moving along to the quest for El Dorado versus Battle Line. Now, the quest for El Dorado is Reiner Knizia's foray into deck building, let's say. Deck building with a board. You're going to have to get to El Dorado. That's it. You're going to run to El Dorado all across, going to the City of Gold, running, and you're going to be amassing cards in your deck as quickly as possible, and then throwing out the ones that you don't need. So if you need a boat, for example, and then you no longer have to go over water, well, you may trash that boat. That's what Reiner Knizia said to me in terms of his design process for it, and I thought that was a cool idea. This is the box cover that I know it of. Battle Line is what it's against. It's a re-implementation of Schotten Totten, which apparently has a lower weight than Battle Line, even though it's exactly the same game. It's a 2-player head-to-head game where you have to mobilize stronger formations to counter the enemy along an ever-changing battle line, hence the name. There's going to be a number of flags out. You can even look at the rules right here. There's going to be a number of flags out that you're going to have to take on. Maybe I can find this. See these little flags? And you're trying to lay down cards in better formations than the other player. You're trying to kind of like poker hands, basically. And if you claim 5 flags, you win, or if you claim 3 adjacent flags, you've managed to break through the opponent's battle line and win the game. I've heard good things of it. I think I remember somebody over at All You Can Board putting this pretty high in their top games. For me, I just love deck building though, so I would probably have to give it to Quest for El Dorado. And that's what a lot of people did. It was 14-3, and then 5 votes for the Abacus of Mystery, the Abacus of Terror, and all of those 5 votes were assigned to the Quest for El Dorado. So it is the Quest for El Dorado that moves forward in a very dominant 19-3 vote. Nobody likes Battle Line, but it seems cool. Seems cool, it seems quick. I think it's a good one that's overlooked, but hey, that's what happened. Moving along, we have Raw versus Samurai. Raw, I've talked about a lot on this channel, and I'm going to talk about it even more right now. The new version of Raw, which looks like this, is fantastic. Great production quality, highly recommend. It's also in the World Series of Board Gaming, and the premise of Raw is this. You're going to be doing 2 things on your turn. You're going to be laying out tiles. You're going to draw a tile from the bag and put it into this communal place with the goal of collecting different tiles as the set collection game is going on. You can see this in a game in progress right now. Or you're going to declare Raw, which means you smash this big wooden statue down to the ground, which starts an auction and forces everybody to bid around the table. You can see this person bid a 9, this person bid a 13, and now it's coming back over here to this person who might be able to bid their 16 and win it. The benefit of declaring Raw is that you get to go last as well. If you win, you get to collect all these tiles. Now, why anyone would bid on this is beyond me, because there are 4 disaster tiles for this explanation, but still, I guess they're bidding on it. It's nice for the explanation. That's it. You're going to have 3 rounds of doing this where you spend all your sun discs. You also get the sun disc in the center as well. If you win the bid, person with the most points from being crafty at set collection wins the game at the end of the game. That's our first game, Raw. It's facing off against Samurai. Samurai, which this is the game that I've played, this version of it. The goal of the game is going to be to get the most symbols of 3 different symbols. You see these black shapes that are all around? That's what you're going for. And then you're placing things around it, trying to encircle it and sorcel it and get majority over them. Now, the key is that your little pieces sometimes are good for multiple things. Sometimes it's only good for one thing. So depending where the things are laid out, you have to be strategic in terms of what you collect, which you're hiding behind a screen. And then you reveal at the end, you say, hey, I've got the most Buddhas and I got the most rice patties. Doesn't matter, you got the most samurais. I don't care. I got 2 out of the 3 symbols, so I win the game. That's basically it. And this one was surprising to me because not a lot of people turned up for this vote. I don't know what it was. Maybe people haven't yet played Raw, which you really should. I've played both of these. My buddy Ryan has Samurai. I own Raw now because I needed to play it for WSBG. Both are really solid and both play quickly. I am much more inclined to Raw, and that's the way that the votes were headed. There were a lot of votes for Raw, and I hate to say this, but maybe more people needed to turn up, because a lot more people were more interested in the mystery of the abacus. And we got 6 votes for the mystery of the abacus. Plus a die of chaos was thrown in for Samurai as well, which enabled Samurai to take the vote in an 11-9 vote. This may have been a tough one. This was a little bit of a tough one. I understand if people are upset. And personally, I'm upset that Raw loses in this fashion, but that's why I am an objective, impartial commissioner. That's what happens. It is Samurai that moves forward in an 11-8 vote, and Raw has been burnt for all eternity. And finally, moving on to our last section of the bracket. I know I've been talking for ages. I thought I was going to be able to film more videos tonight, and I certainly cannot. This is the problem with long-form content on a busy schedule. But here we are with our final 2. We have Modern Art versus My City. Now, Modern Art was Reiner Knizia's sort of first success, and it still has held strength for a long, long time. I'm excited because the guy who's playing Romeo in the show that I'm doing, I'm working at Shakespeare by the Sea over the summer, he just got a copy of Modern Art, and we can potentially play it, although I will have to tell you, Pat, that maybe your hands will be on fire if it loses this game. The point of the game is to get the most money, and you can see that each of these colors represents a different artist, a different artist that's going to be more and more valuable as more paintings are put up for auction. So you're going to be putting up your own paintings for auction and hoping that people pay you, bidding back and forth to get money. That's it in a very rough nutshell. A classic game of art speculation, which if you've ever resold any Kickstarter or tried to get any Command Kickstarter after the Kickstarter, well, you know just how horrible speculation really is. My City came out in 2020, and this is Reiner Knizia's take on the legacy genre, as you develop your city through the ages in this family-friendly legacy experience. And if you happen to play this with just 2 people, well, then you can play it twice, because you've only used the elements for 2 people, and then you just use it for 2 more people as you go through. My City is a pretty simple game. In its essence, it's a polyomino simultaneous play game. You're going to flip over a card, and then everybody's going to take that different shape, and you're going to put it somewhere on your board, and you want to get the most points. There's a whole bunch of placement restrictions to keep in mind, and that's really all you need to know, because I've realized I've spent too long on this. Okay, we got to pick it up. It's My City that's going to win this. It's a blowout for My City. Not only did it get 15 normal votes, it got 6 ABACUS votes to give it a 21-3 victory. Sorry, Modern Art, I guess I'm never going to get to play you. And honestly, it makes me feel a little bit better. Screw you, Kickstarter's board game speculators. We don't want you anymore. I'm coming back to you for this, because that is the end of the first round. Are your favorites still in? Now we're going to ramp things up in a whirlwind of pain and suffering, because I know I've already spent too long on this, and we want to see the results. Which is better? Speed round coming at you right now. Well, in a second, because our first one is A Feast for Odin versus Agricola. We're back to the Uwe Rosenberg. We haven't really talked about A Feast for Odin that much, and by that much I mean it all, because it got the buy in order to make this work for 30 days. But A Feast for Odin is another one of these large Uwe Rosenberg decision-making games. You're going to have a bunch of different tiles, a bunch of different options of things you can do and put onto your own personal area in this polyomino style game, and then you're going to be covering things up and making a feast for Odin. That was a horrible explanation, wasn't it? But it's true. You're going to be doing worker placement, you're going to be getting stuff, and then you're going to be using polyomino tiles to cover up spaces in your main hall, which can give you up to 86 points. It's a lot of points in a game. And then at the end of each round, you of course need to feed your people and make a feast and fill your table with food, and Odin will bless you for it. You can see the breakdown of stuff. These are going to be the actions and the things that you can place your workers in, and then over here are going to be your own personal player boards as you develop your own economy and fill things up. It's up against Agricola, which, as we know, is an elegant point farming game. And for me, I haven't played Feast for Odin. Feast for Odin is Uwe's most top-ranked game. That's why I gave it the buy, because everybody's ranked it the highest. It's number 23 on Board Game Geek. It's also on Board Game Arena, and it's something that you may want to try out because it smashes Agricola. Even with the 6 ABACUS votes going towards Agricola, it is still Feast for Odin that comes out on top in a solid 16-14 vote. Sorry, Agricola, you burnt. A Feast for Odin is moving on into the quarterfinals. Have you figured out the mystery of the ABACUS yet? Some of my patrons may have figured it out at this point, and I can say that you were right. Some of the hypotheses out there were that the ABACUS stood for a number of different things. Always be against Chris unless something. It being completely random and you're just clicking on it. And I just wanted to see how many people would click, like some weird science experiment. Yeah. Some people were thinking that maybe it had to do with it being even and odd. All I will say at this point is that to the people who did figure it out, it would be a pretty powerful tool to scoop up the undecided votes and use them to your own advantage, instead of letting people just cast dice and have random things happen. Maybe that's the design. Maybe that's going to always be the design for future ABACUS. You can do something with them to make things work for you. I don't know. But I do know that Feast for Odin does move on. And we are moving on to Glass Road versus Fields for Arle. Fields for Arle, again, being that 2-player game. Glass Road being that wanting to choose the card that nobody else chooses to be more efficient with your actions. And it doesn't matter that they're blowing up in the glass world In fact, they're blowing out in this deathmatch competition. It is Fields for Arle that does move forward in a 14-4 vote, with only one abacus vote this time going towards Glass Road, giving them that fourth vote. The abacus existing again as a blatant attempt at creating user suspicion. So Glass Road is cut, and Fields of Arle does move on, and we move on over to Pfister with Great Western Trail versus Broom Service. Oh, I didn't have that big. There we go. Broom Service. We have the two greats here, the two riding horses or riding broomsticks. Which one do you really want to vote for? Is it the horses one, like a chump? Do you not believe in magic anymore? I like Broom Service, but I really do like Great Western Trail a lot more. There's so many more moving parts, so much more interesting decisions going on, and the interesting decision in Broom Service is just, hey, am I picking the right card? Am I doing the brave thing, or am I doing the weak little weakling thing? Which is still fine, but Great Western Trail just has so much more depth and complexity to it, and if there's one thing that I like, it's depth and complexity. And so even though Broom Service scoops up 6 abacus votes, it is Great Western Trail that moves on in a dominant 21-15 vote. Moving along over to Maracaibo versus Oh My Goods, and honestly, I expect Oh My Goods to win this. I do, because I think people are trolls enough to make it happen, and then, you know, maybe Great Western Trail fanatics don't want any competition against Maracaibo, what it's kind of often compared to. And honestly, Oh My Goods almost managed to pull it out, but someone did unlock the mystery of the abacus and used it to their advantage to make sure that Maracaibo, who was leading in the votes, stayed leading in the votes. And honestly, as I look back now, I think I miscalled this. I definitely made a mistake, and I assumed that it was Maracaibo that had moved on, but I think Oh My Goods actually won this. In fact, there was a little bit of a click-off happening. People were going back and forth between the numbers on the abacus, raising it up and down. However, there was one brave soul that managed to push Maracaibo forward and get all of the votes, and it's Maracaibo that moves forward in a retroactive 17-13 vote, because you bet your boy dropped an abacus down to put Oh My Goods in the grave. I did it. I'm doing it retroactively. I'm doing it right now to make sure that the rest of the bracket makes sense, because I clearly forgot about it when I posted the next matchup and I just put Maracaibo in automatically. Sorry, Oh My Goods fans, but you don't deserve to move on. You do not deserve to beat Maracaibo. Maracaibo is a great solo mode, and get out of here with this. It is Maracaibo that does move forward in this vote. Sorry to my tiredness. Moving along, we have Paladins of the West Kingdom versus Viscounts of the West Kingdom. I realize we haven't yet talked about Paladins yet. And of course, I do want to bring your attention that the aim of Paladins is to be the player with the most victory points at the game's end. First time I've said that correctly. Compared to the aim of Viscounts is to be the player with the most victory points at the game's end. Which of these victory point garnering games will get the goop? Only time will tell. But let me tell you a little bit more about Paladins and how it uses its worker placement. Paladins, I haven't played it, but I just watched a little video about how to play it. Paladins, oh yeah, here we go, is going to mostly take place on your own little board here, where you are going to be gaining a number of different colored people. These people can be used to get you additional things. You can see this requires a random and a green worker. You can see under here, there'll probably be a nothing and a blue worker to let you change 4 coins into a little building, one of these green buildings, which then will help get more stuff. Every time you do a thing, you're always going to get more things. And so you chain things together and you end up putting out these little buildings all on these communal areas, as well as potentially stealing money from the church, because you want to take money from the church and you want to make sure you just take less money than anybody else, because if the church gets angry, they'll punish the person who took the most money and nobody else, which is pretty good. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Hadrian's Wall. You can see these resources popping up. These indicate the number of people that you've gotten, and then you can use them on your own personal player board to chain into more stuff. You want to be raising these tracks all throughout the game and pushing those up, building additional stuff, etc. You can see these take the spots of one white worker and one green worker. That's why you see down here this player has put these two buildings, making it easier to chain things together. It kind of reminds me of a combo of Orleans and Hadrian's Wall as you fend off and take down these cards as well. Seems pretty cool. In fact, more people thought it was more cool than Viscounts, which, judging by the flow of the game as I've seen, I haven't played either of them, but I think, yeah, I would opt for Paladins over Viscounts based upon that description, because I like Orleans. I like that flow of things and how you use those things effectively. And it was Paladins that got an overwhelming victory in a 15-4 vote, with Viscounts scooping up 2 ABACUS votes and only 2 regular votes. So it's Paladins that moves on. Moving along, we have now Explorers of the North Sea versus Raiders of Scythia. Explorers of the North Sea, you know, exploring, sending your ships out on this map, and Raiders of Scythia more on this worker placement, other standard map where you're going to the village and then going out to different places, going on raids, and being the 1.5 edition coming out in 2020 instead of this one coming out in 2016. Even with Explorers of the North Sea taking 5 of the mystery ABACUS votes, it doesn't matter. Raiders of Scythia had enough momentum. You can see the momentum on that box cover. Let's get it up to move forward in a dominant 16-11 vote. Let's move over to Reiner Knizia. We have Tigris and Euphrates versus the quest for El Dorado. We have deck building versus area control. And this was a really close vote. No ABACUS. The Discord felt they'd solved the ABACUS. Have you solved it by now? I don't know. But this came down to a tie. 11-11. Both of these have their supporters. Both of these have their passion projects, passionate pleas. But one game had more passion behind it. And that game is, unfortunately, not Tigris and Euphrates. I wish I could have poured my passion into it. No, it is the quest for El Dorado that does move forward in a 11-11 tiebreaker going on into the quarterfinals. And it will be facing off against either Samurai or My City. These are 2 worthy competitors. Samurai, area control, dominating, getting those different symbols. My City, tile placement, polyomino. Your city will be unique, it says, and it's right. Both of these got a lot of votes. Okay, well, Samurai didn't get a lot of votes. Samurai got 7 votes. My City got 12 votes. When I look back, it's got 14 votes right now. However, there was something else that got more votes. In fact, the flames of fire erupted in the bracket because one game was wronged in its previous matchup against Samurai. One game deserved to burst forth like the god of the sun. One game deserved to emerge from the flames like a phoenix from the ashes. It is Raw that makes a comeback and eliminates Samurai and My City from contention. Both of them are out of the match. Raw makes a surprise reappearance into the competition and moves forward in a stunning 13-12 vote upset, righting the wrong that the ABACUS did upon its beak. It is Raw that earns its second chance in the competition, and Samurai and My City are out, and so we have our quarterfinals. Here we go. We are heating up. It is time to determine our champion from each one of these designers. I'm going to be quicker than quick. Which of these games is better, Feast for Odin or Fields of Arle? Both play well at 2 players. Both have a robust solo mode. Both have many, many different locations to go to for all of your farming needs. However, it is one of these games that will move forward in a 13-5 votes. Not many votes happening for Uwe Rosenberg. Maybe people were asleep that day, but it doesn't matter. They honor BGG's top 100 ranking, and it is a Feast for Odin that moves forward in that 13-5 vote. Moving along quickly, we're ramping up here. We can feel the energy. It's Great Western Trail versus Maracaibo. Yes, Maracaibo, not Oh My Goods, because that would have been ridiculous, and someone had to intervene retroactively, even though Oh My Goods technically won because of the ABACUS, because somebody figured it out. I'm sorry, Chaotic Neutral Scott. I screwed up. You have my apology, but it doesn't matter. You know why? because one of these is going to take out the other, right? And so obviously, if it didn't matter, then it would be Great Western Trail that were to move on. Great Western Trail, again, honoring the Board Game Geek Top 100. It can't be wrong, right? It's infallible. No, it's the robust solo mode of Maracaibo that helps put it forward, preying upon tableau building instead of the deck building aspect that Great Western Trail puts forward. It's Maracaibo that does get the win and moves on in a 14-11 vote. Now over to Shem Phillips, we have Paladins of the West Kingdom versus Raiders of Scythia. Paladins, again, we just talked about it. You know what it is. Raiders of Scythia, you're balancing work and play, working for your food and then playing in the screams of your enemies. Well, we can fight a kingdom or we can protect a kingdom. And you know that we are shepherds of good and righteousness in this YouTube space. It's Paladins of the West Kingdom that moves forward. I'm not even going to draw it out. Paladins give you the combos of the wombos, getting you workers upon workers, and it's Paladins that moves forward to be Shem's champion in a 16-9 vote. And finally, over on the Reiner Knizia side of things, we have the quest for El Dorado versus Ra back from the dead, but can it top the City of Gold, the beautiful deck building nature that has emerged? And you know what happened? You know what people did? They came back with the abacus. They'd figured it out at this point. And they thought, you know what's best? Ra died by abacus. Ra best live by abacus. I think it was a concerted effort to make sure Ra got 6 votes of the abacus, which propelled it forward, letting Ra win in a 15-11 vote. Honestly, most of the people voting on the abacus would have been happy to see Ra die by the abacus again, but it is Ra fanatics that manipulate the abacus to their advantage and take out the quest for El Dorado, moving Ra into the semifinals. And we have our 4 finalists, our 4 champions from these great designers: A Feast for Odin, Maracaibo, Paladins of the West Kingdom, and Ra. One of these will take home the winning title of Designer Deathmatch Champion. One of these designers is going to win right now. We are going to reveal that to you as it happens. One of these games is going to win in a 13-10 battle. As I look back now, it's actually still winning in a 15-11. It picked up even more votes, even more passion from people who just, they didn't vote that day. And so they went back and they're like, yeah, I would have voted for that. And that's also completely cool. It's A Feast for Odin versus Maracaibo, the multitude of options from Uwe Rosenberg. Uwe Rosenberg's Magnus Opus versus Alexander Pfister's second opus, which could have been Oh My Goods, and I swear to goodness, I cannot believe, I'm so happy that Maracaibo is here instead of that atrocity. It doesn't matter. You know what would have beaten both of them handily? It's Feast for Odin that moves forward. They take them down in that 13-10 win, moving into the semifinals. We're gearing up now. Can I keep the excitement up? I think I can. We've got Paladins of the West Kingdom versus Ra, 2 titans on the other side of the match of titans taking each other out. Paladins does seem actually pretty interesting, but Ra is really good. It's surprising to me that Ra emerged as Reiner Knizia's champion. I would have put Tigris and Euphrates as Reiner Knizia's champion, honestly. Ra is good, and it's solid, and it's fun, but I think people love to veer towards more complexity, and Ra certainly isn't that. Paladins of the West Kingdom does have a little bit more of that complexity in terms of their combos and how they're going to generate those combos. And so it's a very close match. When I check back now, it's 17-13 for the winner. When the winner was called, it was 16-11 for the winner. So the loser picked up a couple more votes, picked up a little bit more steam, but it doesn't matter. Ra is unable to emerge victorious. Its glorious run, its resurrection run, ended in terror to the Paladins of the West Kingdom, and it is the Paladins of the West Kingdom that does move forward in that 16-11 votes. And so we are here. I took a breath for a second. I'm slowing down to give both of these games the beauty and the honor and the privilege that they deserve. It's true. We're looking at them both. A Feast for Odin, Paladins of the West Kingdom. I've played neither of these games, but you know what? I'm very interested in playing both of them. They seem like great games. And if you're the type of person who's just sucking down Kickstarters left and right with utter abandon, well, let me direct you to the great sort of games that you can get at retail. This entire bracket, oh no, I know I've unlocked a beast here, but this entire bracket is worthwhile exploring These two games have battled it out. Both of these seem really cool, but only one will win. And I'll tell you this, both of these games come from designers. The winning game, while you may have laughed at its art, while you may have thought its artwork was the same as all the other games by this same designer, could be both, still could be both. This game picked up steam and it never stopped. Both of these games were the games from the buys. They were the favorites to make it here. The favorites of the designer's collection have emerged to battle it out. And there's only one thing that can take down a god, and that's stealing money from the church. It's Paladins of the West Kingdom that takes it home. They took out Viscounts of the West Kingdom to be the best in the West. They took out Raiders of Scythia. They took down the usurper Ra, who had emerged from the dead and seemed to not be able to be stopped. And then finally, they stuck an arrow through Odin's heart and took out the win. Sorry, Feast for Odin, you burnt. Our winner is Paladins of the West Kingdom. Who could have predicted that Phillips would triumph over Uwe Rosenberg, Reiner Knizia, and Alexander Pfister? All hail our glorious winner, Paladins of the West Kingdom. Without any funny business, they were able to come out on top, coming out honorably like only a paladin should. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to know the mystery of the abacus, well, it was pretty simple this time. If there was an even number of votes, it went to the second game up for bat. If it was an odd number of votes, well, all of them were assigned to the first game up for bat. That was it. People in the Discord figured it out. You figured it out very quickly, much to my chagrin, and I was very annoyed about it. But the point here was that you could steal other people's votes who didn't really care about their votes, and if you cared about their votes enough to keep on manipulating it, that's what my thinking was for that. Anyway, that's the mystery of the abacus done. Congratulations to Phillips and Paladins of the West Kingdom. If you're interested in getting in on these daily deathmatch voting, well, you can sign up for the Ruined Board Patreon. It's like a couple bucks a month. It gets you access to the Patreon-only Discord. But if you don't have the money or you don't want to spend it and support the channel and throw me, a quarter per video, that's completely okay. Totally understand. I will always create these recaps as long as they take for you all, because I think it's fun, and that way everyone can participate in the fun and participate on the guessing and thinking about what game you think would win. But if you want to support the channel, that's a way to do so, and that's kind of what we do, is we have that daily discussion and try to keep the conversation going. This next month, Deathmatch, our theme is what is the worst game out there. But to make it a little bit nice, it's actually sort of guilty pleasures. What are those games that people kind of rag on, that you like, that deserve the title of worst game out there, that you still might play and you might get to the table? That's what we're voting on right now. If you want to do that, I'll see you over in the Discord. Other than that, we're done. Goodbye. My name's Chris George. I don't have a catchphrase, but I appreciate you being here, and I'm going to cut before I cough. Bye.